Hi, I'm Dave Westbrook, and I want to welcome you to this important webinar and also let you know that at the end of this presentation, I'll be making an announcement about a special training opportunity that I'm sure you'll want to know about. So you'll want to make sure and watch the webinar all the way to the end. Okay, let's dive right in. There are a number of reasons why people signed up for this webinar, but I'd like you to think for a moment about why you signed up. Maybe the idea of a country lifestyle appeals to you. It resonates with you, but you don't know how to get that for your family right now. You either don't know where to start, or the next step to take, or the step-by-step process that will get you there. Perhaps you're feeling uneasy because you know there's a serious crisis coming, but you're afraid your family isn't ready and you want to do something about it. Maybe you're confused about whether or not Christians should even be making physical preparations, like getting out of the city, stocking up on food, or getting off the grid, or if all that just somehow reveals a lack of faith on your part. Should you just focus on Bible study and prayer and simply trust God to take care of the rest? Or maybe you feel stuck. You really want a country lifestyle, but you're frustrated because it seems like there are obstacles in the way that you just can't get around. Maybe you've even tried already, but failed. And now you find yourself feeling tired and wondering if it's even possible for you. You might even find yourself fed up with hype and scare tactics and failed predictions. What you really want is reliable, solid information that will give you a step-by-step, doable plan, laying out exactly what you need to do next and what not to waste your time doing so that your family is positioned to not just survive, but to thrive now and through the coming crisis. If any, or all of these for that matter, ring true for you, then I have some really great news. Because in this webinar, I'm going to share with you exactly what your family needs to do to be certain they're prepared. I'm going to show you what the Bible really says about making physical preparations and why a country lifestyle will offer you the best preparation for what's coming. I'm going to show you how to conquer those obstacles that stand in your way, and I'm going to give you a step-by-step plan. I'm also going to show you 5 ways to financially support a country lifestyle, as well as how you can save thousands on your next country property. Plus, I'm going to give you my top 10 list of good old-fashioned country living natural remedies. And I'm going to show you how you can start reaping the benefits of a country lifestyle right away, even while you're still living in the city. When we're through, you'll know the steps to take and exactly what you need to do next to empower your family to thrive now and through the coming crisis. Now that's a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to be moving fast. And in order for me to deliver on my promise, there's something I need from you. I need you to focus. I need you to stay actively engaged in this presentation. It's pretty hard to do that if you're trying to multitask. So I recommend that you close any other programs you have open, close your email, turn off your cell phone, and grab a pencil and paper so you can take notes, because what you're about to learn has been pivotal in changing the lives of other families, and yours can be next if you grasp the concepts and strategies that I'll be sharing during this webinar. So let's get started. First off, why should you listen to me? That's a fair question. So let me begin by giving you a little bit of background so you know where I'm coming from. This is our home in North Idaho. It's on 10 acres surrounded by some of the most beautiful wilderness in the U.S. That's my wife Laura and our daughter Allison, along with Charlie, our golden retriever, and our 2 horses, Charlie and Scout. Yeah, that's right, 2 Charlies, Charlie the dog and Charlie the horse. I work from home, which means I get to spend a lot of time with my family. We love the outdoors and enjoy activities like hiking, biking, horseback riding, 4-wheeling, water skiing, and snow skiing. Our family is also involved in ministry and outreach. I love our country lifestyle. It's a great way to live. But our life wasn't always this way. 12 years ago, like most everyone else, we were doing the daily grind. We were living in a townhouse. I had a successful career as a pastor. Things were good, but I was starting to have some doubts about our fast-paced suburban lifestyle. I remember thinking to myself, is this really how I want to live the rest of my life? More and more I found myself reading about the benefits of country living, particularly from one of my favorite authors, Ellen White. I was impressed with her appeals to families to move out of the city and pursue a quiet, simpler life. Her descriptions of the advantages of a country lifestyle resonated with me. Ultimately, I recognized a clear call to my family to move to the country. But how? And then came the last day of December, 1999, the eve of 2000, what came to be known as Y2K. Fears were running high, computers were running everything, and uncertainty was in the air about what would happen when those computers went from 99 to 00. There had been a lot of speculation that the power grid could simply shut down and that it could take days or even weeks to bring it all back online again. That day, the last day of the year, Laura came home from Costco and told me about the long lines in the crowded store full of people stocking up at the last minute. She was nervous. As I tried to reassure her that we'd be fine, I hoped she wouldn't read what was really going through my mind. What if it were to happen? What if the power grid really did go down for weeks or months? I imagined what that would mean. Cash registers down, gas pumps not working, an interruption in transportation and freight lines, food deliveries couldn't be made, municipal water systems would be down without electricity for pumping. Plus, add to that the fact that it was the end of December, the dead of winter. In cold climates, like where we were living, thousands of homes would be without power and heat. I imagined what would happen if the masses of people surrounding us would be without the basic necessities of life. It would be a nightmare. I'll never forget that feeling. Trying to look good on the outside, but feeling uneasy inside. Wondering why I hadn't taken the steps so my family would be prepared. We didn't have much food stocked up. We didn't have much extra gas. We didn't have a generator. We were simply and stupidly unprepared, and it was my fault. I had let my family down. Well, of course, the new year passed without incident, but that experience, coupled with the conviction that had grown from what I'd been reading, convinced me that it was time to do something. I would never leave my family in such a vulnerable position again. And so, 6 months later, we moved to a small remote cabin in the mountains of Northern California. It was on a piece of property that was in the family. There were actually a couple parcels next to each other, and we were going to stay in the cabin on one while we started building our home on the other piece. It was very remote, off-grid, and gave us a crash course in wilderness living. But it was exciting. We were doing it. I was giving my family a better way of life. We were going to learn to live off the land, grow our own food, and generate our own power and stop living like everyone else. But we soon ran into some challenges. The property was extremely remote, which I loved, but that also meant that when things broke, if I didn't have the right parts or the right tools, I had to make a 1.5 to 2 hour round trip to the nearest hardware store. I had to quickly learn how to fix broken water lines and solve problems with our off-grid power system. It was a lot of work, and there were some real disappointments, like the time some open-range cows came through, tore our garden fence down, and devoured our 5-foot-tall tomato plants. They left nothing except one small red slice of tomato. But in spite of the challenges, the tough learning curve, we were excited. We had cleared an area to build our home. In fact, we'd spent several $1,000s from our savings to make house plans, and we'd started the process of getting our plans approved at the county building department. But then the unthinkable happened. The county not only rejected our building plans, they informed us that those two parcels, the one with the cabin we were living in and the one we were planning to build on, had been illegally subdivided years before, and so we couldn't build. It was a shock. Everything came to a screeching halt. Our plans were shot down. A hefty chunk of our savings account was gone. It was gut-wrenching. So we pulled out and went back to the townhouse. My mind was reeling with questions. How could this have happened? How did we get burned so badly? Why hadn't we found out about the legal issue with the property before spending all that time and money? And then, of course, upon coming back, we had to face our friends who had been watching us through this whole process. I was sure some of them had already thought we were crazy even to be pursuing such a dramatically different way of life, and now we had failed, and it hurt bad. I started questioning myself. Maybe I'd been wrong about the whole thing. Maybe it was just a crazy idea. Maybe it was just too hard. Maybe it just couldn't be done. But somehow, that dream of a country lifestyle for my family, that flame of hope, didn't blow out. As I went back and studied the issue again, I came away even more convinced that it really was time to get my family out of the city. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized there were reasons things had been so hard at the cabin. And more importantly, there were reasons things ultimately didn't work out. I started realizing that if I had only had the right information beforehand, I could have avoided all that heartache and expense. I started to see that the right information, coupled with a strategic approach, could cut corners and get us to our dream of a country lifestyle much faster and without the pain and loss brought by costly mistakes. So I decided to learn from our failure and try again, only this time with a more strategic approach. Armed with the knowledge we'd gained from that first experience, we made a list of what we were looking for and started searching. About 4 months later, we found a property that had everything on our list, and after signing the papers and a 60-day escrow, we moved out of the townhouse and into our first real country property. That was in the spring of 2001. It was an amazing place. 20 acres, nestled in the Kettle Mountain Range of northeast Washington state. We called it Tamarack Meadows. It had a big house, a blueberry patch, and an orchard with all kinds of fruit trees, something we had no idea how to take care of. But we learned, and the reward each year was a rich harvest. Apples, pears, cherries, peaches, apricots, plums, and we learned how to garden too. Now, Tamarack Meadows wasn't without its challenges. I just showed you the after pictures, but in fact, this was the house when we first looked at it. There was a lot of work to do. The well had its problems too, and in fact, we ended up rehabilitating that well to increase its yield to handle our irrigation needs. But even though there were challenges, the place had the right ingredients to make a country lifestyle work. And as we worked to overcome the challenges, I endeavored to keep learning, keep mastering the strategies that would help not only ourselves, but others to successfully achieve their country lifestyle dreams too. In fact, it was that desire to share what we learned with others that led us in 2004 to start speaking at Out of the Cities rallies that were hosted in major cities across the United States. It was an exciting time as thousands of people came to these rallies in cities like New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Los Angeles, and others to learn how to do what we had done, how to pursue a whole new way of life. Ultimately, it expanded even more through Country Living University, our online school where we've been able to share these same strategies with students all across the United States and internationally as well. As more and more people have taken action on what they've learned, both at our live rallies and through Country Living University, it's given us an opportunity to test the strategies we're teaching to prove their effectiveness, now not just in our own experience, but in the experience of others as well. And by the way, whether you're new to this and don't really know where to start, or if you're a person who's already tried and failed in your pursuit of a country lifestyle, you're at the right place at the right time, because in this webinar, over the next few minutes, I'm going to share those same strategies with you. I'm going to show you not only how to make the transition from an urban lifestyle to a country lifestyle successfully, but I'm going to show you how to do it faster and with less effort than you'll experience if you don't know these strategies. But first, I need to address something because this raises an interesting question for Seventh-day Adventists. You see, I'm finding that many Christians seem to think that they don't need to prepare physically. All they have to do is trust in God to carry them through. All they need is spiritual preparation. In fact, some even suggest that to engage in physical preparation exhibits a lack of faith, that somehow you're betraying your Christianity if you start thinking about positioning your family to be physically prepared in a crisis. So, what about that view? How does it square up with a careful comparison to what the Bible actually teaches? Let's take a look. We find the first big crisis in the Bible in Genesis chapters 6 to 8. That was a flood. In fact, it was the worst flood of all time. How did Noah get his family through that crisis? He did it by carefully following a plan that involved building a giant boat, something that required the investment of everything he had. That was a huge physical preparation. Several chapters later in Genesis 18 and 19, we come to another major catastrophic event, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. There were a few survivors, Lot and his wife, although she didn't survive for very long, and 2 of their daughters. But what was the key to their survival? They had to make a major change, physically relocating to a safe place in the mountains. Then, several chapters later, still in the book of Genesis, chapter 41, we come to one of the worst droughts of world history. But God revealed his plan to get through that drought, and he put a leader in place to help everyone survive it, Joseph. And of course, you remember the plan, which involved a systematic long-term food storage program. Once again, physical preparation. We can turn to the New Testament times as well, where we find the story of the destruction of Jerusalem, which Jesus described in Matthew 24. What about the survivors in that crisis? How did they get through it? They survived because they left the city while they had an opportunity to do so, and went to Pella in the mountains. In each of these cases, we see people who were spiritually prepared, yes, but that wasn't enough. They didn't get through those crises by prayer and study of God's Word only. They had to take special measures. They had to make physical preparations to get through the crisis. Through these stories, the Bible makes a very clear case that getting through a crisis requires, yes, a strong spiritual foundation, but it also requires strategic planning and real physical preparation. Ellen White reiterated this when she described one of the reasons for getting out of the cities and living in the country and learning to grow our own food. It was because a crisis is coming, a crisis so bad it will lead to religious persecution, and during that time, when economic sanctions are brought against people who faithfully keep the Sabbath, those who prepare will have food. Notice this. Again and again, the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the cities into the country where they can raise their own provisions. For in the future, the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. From the Adventist Home, page 141. Now, Mrs. White also warned against going to extremes and trying to make preparations for the great time of trouble at the very end, when we no longer will have our homes and properties. At that time, we'll have to rely completely on God's providence, but for the crisis leading up to that, we must prepare. That's why she herself practiced strategic planning and preparation. Notice this excerpt from a letter she wrote. Each year, we put up not less than 600 or 800 quarts of canned fruit. We have peaches, apricots, nectarines, grapes, plums, and tomatoes canned. I've given you these particulars so that you may know all about our ways and practices, which may differ from your present style of living. From Manuscript Releases, Volume 14, page 332. The truth is, those ways and practices differ from most people's style of living these days. When I talk to Christians who believe that we shouldn't do anything physically to prepare for the tough times ahead, I can't help but think of Jesus' words. The children of this world are, in their generation, wiser than the children of light. Luke 16:8. And it really is true. There are people who make no profession of religion or faith, but they see the handwriting on the wall. They see what's happening in the world, and many of them are diligently making plans and preparations to position their families to thrive during the worst of times. And in that respect, they're exhibiting more faith than many Christians. This is a strange irony, but I've had people tell me, Dave, you don't have enough faith. If you just had more faith, you wouldn't have to worry about being prepared. But actually, the opposite is true. It's because of my faith that I am preparing. You see, people who really believe it's coming prepare. A couple years ago, I was involved in an interesting project. I directed a documentary film called America's Cities, The Coming Crisis. As the director, I personally interviewed the top authorities in the nation in a number of different areas of expertise. We wanted to consider the coming crisis from every imaginable angle, so we needed to consider everything from the economic crisis to pandemic, bioterror, nuclear terror, increasing impact of natural disasters, and the vulnerability of our nation's power grid and the looming food crisis. So here are some of the people I interviewed. Grant Peterson, former Associate Director of FEMA at the national level and author of the After Action Report on the 9/11 Pentagon attack. In that capacity, he and his team interviewed many people who were on the scene. At the time of our interview, Mr. Peterson was involved in nuclear disaster contingency plans for metropolitan areas. William Robb, MD, Science Advisor to the Secretary of Health and Human Services Department of the U.S. government, and an expert in pandemic threats. Michael Osterholm, Director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy and author of Living Terrors, What America Needs to Know to Survive the Coming Bioterrorist Catastrophe. Graham Allison, Harvard University professor and author of Nuclear Terrorism, who has also served as a special advisor to the United States Secretary of Defense, considered by many to be the top expert on the threat of nuclear terror to American cities. Jonathan Tucker, author of the book Scourge, The Once and Future Threat of Smallpox, and considered by many to be one of the nation's foremost authorities on biological and chemical weapons. Robert Gallucci, PhD and Georgetown University professor at the time of our interview. He'd previously served as the Deputy Executive Chairman of the United Nations Special Commission assigned to look for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Congressman Roscoe Bartlett, representing the 6th District of Maryland and also serving as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Tactical Air and Land Forces of the Armed Services Committee. Mr. Bartlett is also the leading authority in Congress on the threat of electromagnetic pulse, also known as EMP. This was an amazing experience. Talking with people like this, people at the top of their fields, insiders, and getting their perspective on what's coming. And after hours of personal conversations with these experts, one thing was very clear. Smart people in the know are positioning themselves right now so that they'll be able to not just survive, but thrive through the crisis that they know is coming. For example, Grant Peterson, the former Associate Director of FEMA, who I mentioned a moment ago, we interviewed him in his remote mountain home where he has a year's supply of food and propane, multiple ways to heat his house, and a backup power system, if that gives you any idea of what he's expecting and how he's prepared. Not surprisingly, he said to me, it's not about if, it's when. Robert Gallucci and Graham Allison both agreed that preparedness planning is the responsible thing for families to do. Dr. Bill Robb with Health and Human Services recommended having a reasonable stockpile of essential things like food and medicines. Congressman Roscoe Bartlett, like Mr. Peterson, also has a home in the mountains with plenty of food and independent energy and water systems. The thing I want you to notice is this. These people aren't on the fringe. These are intelligent people, professional experts, and they're deeply concerned about what's coming. So concerned, in fact, as you can see in the case of Grant Peterson and Roscoe Bartlett, that they're taking serious action to position themselves to be prepared for what's coming. And by the way, they're not just doing it to take care of themselves. They want to be positioned to be able to help others in their community in a time of crisis. But here's the important question. Why can't you do the same thing? Why can't you be just as prepared as they are? Well, I have good news for you. You can. You might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, I don't have a home in the mountains. I definitely don't have the money to buy one either. Well, that's okay, trust me. You can be just as prepared as the people I just told you about. And I'm going to show you the steps to take to get there, no matter what your financial situation is right now. But before I give you those steps, there's something you need to understand. This is something you simply have to get right in order to successfully prepare your family for what's coming. If you don't understand this, you'll never get there. It's directly related to a phrase I've already used repeatedly during the first few minutes of this webinar. Did you catch it? The phrase is country lifestyle. And this is key because the secret to empowering your family to function optimally, even in the worst of times, is a country lifestyle. You see, it's more about a way of life, a lifestyle, than it is about an address. It's not just about finding a country property. I'm even more interested in helping you launch a country lifestyle. I'm talking about a whole different way of life, learning to live outside the confines of the way the rest of the world lives and discovering real freedom. I'm talking about establishing a lifestyle that will enable your family to function with far less dependence on the system that most people rely on to get through their everyday life. The supermarket, city utilities like water, electricity, natural gas, and the list goes on. What I mean by country lifestyle is something much deeper than just a house in the country, a different address. In fact, most of the changes you need to make to start living a country lifestyle, to thrive in this economy and in the coming days as things worsen, most of those changes you can start making no matter where you live, even in the city. I'll say more about that in a few minutes, but for now, please write this down. A country lifestyle will empower your family to not just survive, but to thrive now and through the coming crisis. A country lifestyle is all about taking the necessary steps, mastering the right skills, and putting in place the necessary resources so that your family is empowered to not just survive, but thrive, to function optimally through the worst of times. One of the biggest reasons a country lifestyle empowers us to function optimally, especially through a time of crisis, is that that is the way of life we were designed for. A country lifestyle is wired into your system, whether or not you're aware of it. The Creator originally designed humans to function optimally in a garden, connected with nature. And this is really important because it gets to the very core of a spiritual truth. You see, in talking about the first strategy for empowering your family to stand strong through the coming crisis, we need to get to the very foundation, which is the spiritual. The spiritual foundation has to be right. You can't really have power unless you connect with the source of power. And a connection with nature is key for that to happen. And I'm going to show you how to start doing that, even if you live in a concrete jungle. But for now, read this quote with me, one of my favorites, about how to connect with divine power. All who are under the training of God need the quiet hour for communion with their own hearts, with nature, and with God. In them is to be revealed a life that is not in harmony with the world, its customs, or its practices, and they need to have a personal experience in obtaining a knowledge of the will of God. We must individually hear Him speaking to the heart. When every other voice is hushed and in quietness we wait before Him, the silence of the soul makes more distinct the voice of God. He bids us, "Be still and know that I am God," Psalm 46:10. This is the effectual preparation for all labor for God. Amidst the hurrying throng and the strain of life's intense activities, he who is thus refreshed will be surrounded with an atmosphere of light and peace. He will receive a new endowment of both physical and mental strength. His life will breathe out a fragrance and will reveal a divine power that will reach men's hearts. That's from Ministry of Healing, page 58. Wow. Do you want that? New endowment of both physical and mental strength? Do you want your life to reveal a divine power that will reach men's hearts? Did you notice how to get it? What it comes down to? 3 components for this high level of spiritual experience: communion with our own hearts, with nature, and with God. I want to focus on that second point because it's not talked about much, but it's critical. Yes, self-examination is important. Bible study and prayer are crucial in communing with God, but that other essential ingredient is communion with nature. So please write this down. If you want to connect with divine power, if you want to empower your family, start connecting with nature. This is strategy number 1. Communion with God through communion with nature. Put spiritual interests first by seeking a deeper communion with God by connecting with nature. If you want to ramp up your spiritual experience, take it to the next level, this is how. Communion with nature is at the heart of a country lifestyle. It's at the core of what makes this such a different way to live. And you were wired for this. You were designed to function optimally when you're in communion with nature. It's in that experience that deep spiritual change happens. Notice this quote from the book Country Living. I urge our people to make it their life work to seek for spirituality. Christ is at the door. This is why I say to our people, do not consider it a privation when you're called to leave the cities and move out into the country places. Here there await rich blessings for those who will grasp them. By beholding the scenes of nature, the work of the Creator, by studying God's handiwork, imperceptibly, you will be changed into the same image. From Country Living, page 14. Now here's the exciting thing. You can start to do this immediately no matter where you live. Even if you haven't yet found your country home, even if you're living in the city, even if you're living in an apartment high-rise, you can start now to do this. How? Surround yourself with as much nature as you can. Fill your apartment with plants, real plants. If you have a balcony or a small patio, turn it into a little Garden of Eden with living plants. Make that your special place for prayer and Bible study. Maybe there's a park nearby where you can go to commune with nature. On your days off, drive out of the city. Go to a quiet place in nature, maybe by a lake or river or in some forest where you can connect with God through nature. When you get some extended time off for a vacation, go camping. Choose places where you'll be immersed in creation and you'll begin to reap rich rewards. Is this a substitute for living in a beautiful country setting? Of course not, but it's a start. Those times in nature will start to impact your thinking. They'll supercharge your system. As we read a moment ago, you will receive a new endowment of both physical and mental strength. By beholding the scenes of nature, the work of the Creator, by studying God's handiwork, imperceptibly, you will be changed into the same image. This is the heart of positioning your family for the coming crisis because it's about positioning your heart. It's about grounding yourself so you can work from the right perspective. It's about having the right focus. The greatest gift that a country lifestyle can give you is a new and fresh way of thinking about things. And the more that you can start to connect with nature, to whatever degree possible, the sooner you're going to start benefiting from this effect. You're going to start experiencing greater clarity in your thinking and your decisions that will help you get to that country lifestyle you want much sooner. I hope you're seeing that this first step is all about establishing the correct driving force in your life. So ask yourself this question. What is the driving force motivating me to seek a country lifestyle right now? One of the biggest mistakes I see people making in pursuing a country lifestyle is allowing themselves to be driven by the wrong forces. For example, many are being driven to seek a country lifestyle in reaction to hype or scare tactics, or even some prediction that maybe came in their email inbox. So please write this down. Ignore hype and scare tactics. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting you should have your head in the sand. I'm not suggesting that you be oblivious to very real threats and dangers. In other words, don't go glibly along in the face of danger just hoping things will turn out okay. But by the same token, don't be tossed to and fro by scare tactics and every hypey prediction that comes along either. Ignore hype and scare tactics. Reacting to hype and scare tactics often leads to bad decisions. When we panic, we often fail to carefully weigh all the alternatives, and then in turn, ruled by fear, we fail to move in a systematic, strategic way, and the bad decisions that can result from that can ultimately cause us to fail. In the long run, people who succeed are the people who don't make rash, panicky moves. The ones who succeed are the ones who learn to act strategically and systematically. See, you don't need fear to drive you. A spiritual focus is what you need, and that's why it's the first step. And of course, part of that spiritual focus, part of that strategic and systematic approach involves being responsible for your family, positioning them to be stable and strong in good times or bad. All right, we're ready now for strategy number 2. Here's the secret to start reaping the benefits of a country lifestyle right away, no matter where you live, even if it's in the city. Do what you can now. Start practicing as much of a country lifestyle as you can right now. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about the most effective strategies for finding an ideal piece of country property where you can really leverage all the benefits of a country lifestyle. But strategy number 2 is all about doing the things you can do immediately to start enjoying as much of a country lifestyle as possible right away. Now, to understand what I mean by that, you need to know what the components of a country lifestyle are. There are 8 of them. The first we've already discussed, and that's the spiritual component. So now let's look at the other 7. They are water, food, energy, natural remedies, survival skills, financial assets, and location. Now, I put water first because it's something you can't survive long without. It's truly a basic necessity of life. Ultimately, a country lifestyle should provide you with a sustainable water source, like a well, a spring, or a creek. But since this strategy is all about starting to put into practice as much of a country lifestyle as you can right now, the question is, what can you do about this if you're on a city water supply? There are 2 things you can and should do right away. First, make sure you have a small water filter, like a backpacking water filter, so that you can get drinking water in an emergency when there's likely to be some water around, but not necessarily safe for drinking. The second thing you need to do is have some bottled water on hand. How much? Well, that may be dictated by the space you have for storing bottled water, but many emergency preparedness experts say you should have at least enough for 1 gallon per person per day for 2 weeks. In other words, 14 gallons per person. Next is food, and there are really 2 parts to this piece of the country lifestyle. Let's begin with what you can get started on the quickest, and that's food storage. You can simply go out and buy foods that are prepackaged for long-term storage, but far more economical and sustainable is to do your own food preserving. And this means doing your own canning and dehydrating, plus airtight storage of grains and legumes in 5-gallon buckets. And in a few minutes, I'll tell you how you can learn how to do that. But this really empowers you to take control of where your food comes from and how it's grown. In other words, you could select the best quality food that's grown locally, so you'd know how it's grown and whether or not it's GMO. Even better, you could preserve the food you grow yourself, which brings me to the second part of the food equation, and that's gardening. It comes as a surprise to many people that it really is quite feasible to get to the place where you can grow most of the food you need to feed your family. Now, you won't be doing that overnight. There is a learning curve, and gardening is something you should start doing no matter where you live. You can start gardening in pots on a patio or even on a high-rise apartment balcony. Or maybe there's an area nearby where you could start a neighborhood garden. By starting now, you can develop your gardening skills so that by the time you find your country property, you'll be ready to hit the ground running. You can see that doing your own food storage will enable you to feed your family year-round with the food you grow yourself. Which brings us to another important question. How much food should you store? Well, I recommend working toward a 1 to 2 year food supply. Now that might seem like a lot to you, but stick with me on this one for a moment. You see, that's the way people used to live on the farm. You had to get through the winter to the next growing season, and then there were times when the crops did poorly or even failed. So this is a country lifestyle mindset. And even though that may seem like a lot to you, you can get there in steps. In other words, your first goal could be to have a month's supply of food, then 3 months, then 6 months, and so on until you reach your 1 to 2 year goal. So how much food would that be? Well, it differs slightly for different people. So you can determine that by tracking how much food your family eats, or you can simply work off of an estimate. The Mormons have done more than probably anyone else to try and determine how much food would be needed to feed one adult over a year. And so here are their estimates. Grains, 300 pounds, legumes, 60 pounds, fruit, 185 pounds, vegetables, 185 pounds, sugars, 60 pounds, milk, 75 pounds, fats and oils, 25 pounds, and then miscellaneous cooking, things like salt, yeast, and other cooking essentials, 10 pounds, for a total of 900 pounds. Now, there are things on that list that we don't eat. For example, we don't use milk and dairy products, so you can simply substitute those items with something else. The next country lifestyle component is energy, and for this one we're talking about electricity and whatever you use to heat your home and cook. For sure, setting up an alternative energy system is more feasible and affordable now than it's ever been before. And even if you can't afford to do it all at once, it's the kind of thing that you can build step by step over time. Here are the basic parts of an alternative energy system. If you wanted to take it a step at a time, You could start with a generator, then add batteries and an inverter and charge controller, and finally add solar panels. If you live in an area where you can have a wood stove, that would provide heat for your family independent of city utilities, and you could even cook on it if you had to. But what if you're in a metropolitan setting where these things really aren't an option? Then the next best thing is to make sure you can get along without electricity and natural gas. Make sure you have good sleeping bags to stay warm if you're in a cold climate. It might be a good idea to get an inexpensive camp stove and some propane bottles as an emergency backup. And make sure you have enough gas stored in 5-gallon containers to drive out of the city in an emergency. Now, it's true that in an emergency, you might not be able to get out of the city, even if you had enough gas. But why not at least do what you can right now to be as prepared as possible? Speaking of emergencies, let's go to the next of the country lifestyle components, natural remedies. In the interest of lessening our dependence on the system, what about learning to deal with as many health problems as possible using good old-fashioned home remedies? Many of these have been passed down to us after lots of field testing on the farm. This is really a vital part of learning to live off the land and get back to a simpler way of life. So here's my list of top 10 natural remedies you should have on hand. I should add that I'm not presenting this as medical advice, but simply for educational purposes regarding natural remedies that we use and why we use them. For medical advice regarding the use of these remedies, consult with a medical doctor who's familiar with these remedies. And in saying that, I'm certainly not trying to downplay the effectiveness or power of these country living natural remedies. On the contrary, I believe that in the coming days, these will offer the best solution for dealing with the big bugs, those dreaded pandemics and even biological weapons of the future. Top health experts agree that in those sorts of scenarios, the medical system will become overwhelmed very quickly and incapable of dealing with mass numbers of victims. And so once again, we see how a country lifestyle can empower you to deal with the worst of times. Keep in mind, there are certainly more natural remedies that we could talk about, but this is just my top 10 list. First on that list is charcoal powder, which we use externally for bites and stings and internally for food or other internal poisoning. It can be used for your pets as well if they get into something poisonous. If you're taking any medications, which could cause a serious problem if you suddenly stop taking them, then you need to consult with your physician before using charcoal, as it has been known to completely absorb medicine residues from the bloodstream. Next, cayenne powder. Specifically, the African bird pepper variety is something we have on hand to stop bleeding, stabilize blood pressure, and even to give someone immediately after a heart attack until professional help arrives. Cayenne also seems to increase the effectiveness of some other herbal remedies as well. If you don't get the African bird pepper, make sure you have something that's at least 90,000 heat units. Bentonite clay is another powerful absorbing remedy that has the advantage of not leaving a black stain like charcoal can do. Bentonite clay can help with allergic reactions like hay fever, and make sure you get the dried powder form and make sure it's pharmaceutical grade. Next on my list are aloe vera and comfrey. Both are herbs that aid in the healing of wounds, cuts, and burns. You can grow aloe vera as a houseplant, and comfrey will grow in your backyard. With aloe vera, you can simply slice open the leaves and use the gel from inside. And with comfrey, you can make a poultice from the leaves and the roots. Garlic is next on the list and is effective as a natural antibiotic and also helps to lower blood pressure. And if you use it when you're sick, it also keeps you from getting too close to others and spreading your bug. Echinacea is one of our favorite herbs to strengthen the immune system, especially during cold and flu season, as is golden seal, another natural antibiotic herb on our list. We like to use these herbs in tincture form since they're much stronger that way. Many people don't realize that figs can be a powerful natural remedy. You might remember that in the Bible, God told Elijah to apply a fig poultice to King Hezekiah's sore, which resulted in his healing. Mrs. White made this interesting observation about this incident. It would be well to treasure this prescription which the Lord ordered to be used more than we do. From Selected Messages, Volume 2, page 300. Next on my list is a natural immune formula, and here's the recipe. 1 grapefruit, 1 orange, 2 lemons, 3 cloves of garlic, 1/2 large onion, 3 drops of peppermint essential oil, and a pinch of cayenne. Cut everything in pieces, add water, and blend, adding the peppermint oil at the end. Take a 1/2 cup to 1 cup throughout the day, a spoonful at a time. Finally, I've included the Russian steam bath. This is a powerful hydrotherapy treatment, which you can do simply by placing a tea kettle full of water on a hot plate under a wooden chair. And make sure it's a wooden chair to avoid burns that can result from a metal chair getting too hot or a plastic chair melting. Drape sheet plastic or even a shower curtain around the person to trap the steam, creating a steam bath. Keep a cold, damp cloth on the forehead. And after about 20 minutes or less, if that's all the person can stand, follow this with a cold shower and then some bed rest under some nice warm blankets. We use this remedy at the early signs of flu and have found it to be very effective. There are, of course, many more natural remedies we could talk about, but I have a lot more to cover, so let's move on. Survival skills are an important part of a country lifestyle. I'm talking about things like how to start a fire without matches or a cigarette lighter. Fire is valuable not only for warmth and cooking, but can be valuable for making water safe to drink. There are other valuable skills like how to build a makeshift shelter if you get stuck out in the forest, and how to identify wild edible plants. In fact, I think it's a good idea to get a wild edible plant book for your area and start to learn them. These kinds of skills are really all about developing the ability to use ingenuity and creativity to solve practical problems without depending on tools and equipment we usually have to help us out. Improvising to solve problems is a skill that can be developed with practice, and definitely something that people who live in the country get good at. It's also a skill that's going to come in real handy in the tough times ahead. The next component of a country lifestyle that I want to consider with you has to do with financial assets. And this gets really interesting because this is where a country lifestyle can enable you to tap into a financial strategy of the super wealthy, no matter what your financial situation is. That strategy is to focus more on assets than money. Now, it's a good idea to have some money in savings, and incidentally, I think it's smart to have some of that savings in the form of gold and silver coins. I'm talking about coins in smaller denominations that could be exchanged for food, fuel, seeds, tools, building materials, or other supplies. But I'm even more interested in what I call country living assets. Country living assets are things that, if you know how to use them, are worth more than the money it takes to buy them. For example, if you know how to grow food, seeds are worth more than the money they cost. The money you spend on seeds can multiply very quickly because you can plant those seeds and grow not only more food, but produce more seeds as well. That's an exponential return on your investment. That's what I'm talking about when I say country living assets. And we could talk about many other country living assets like tools, say a chainsaw, for example, which can pay for itself many times over if it's used to cut wood that will heat your home. You get the idea. I hope you're noticing something. This is a component of country living that you can start to incorporate into your life right now, even if you live in the city. As you start to invest in and use things that will pay you back by providing what your family needs, you'll start reaping the rewards of a country lifestyle. By the way, no one can truly reap the benefits of a country lifestyle without acknowledging the Creator. You can see that when it comes to finances, we do that by investing wisely in things that offer a good return. And what could offer a better return than eternal investments, which is why tithes and offerings are so important. That's investing in eternal assets, which of course offer the highest return on investment and are more important than all the other assets combined. The eighth component of a country lifestyle is the location, a home in the country. Now, I could have put these components in any order, but I put this component where I did in the list because I wanted to demonstrate something for you, and that is this. You can start putting into practice every other component to some degree, even while you're still living in the city. And even for the country living environment, you can start to plan those times to get your family in natural settings as often as possible, and that's a good start. But there's something more. Even though you can start incorporating each of these components into your life, no matter where you live, you will not be able to leverage them sufficiently to achieve the goals you need for your family to thrive in the tough times ahead until you truly have this component in place. Yes, you can start to enjoy many benefits from a country lifestyle even while you're living in the city, but you won't be able to fully implement any of the components of a country lifestyle. You will not be able to get the full benefit of a country lifestyle, and you will not be able to position your family to thrive through the coming crisis without actually living in a rural country setting. That's why Mrs. White had things like this to say about the importance of getting out of the cities. Out of the cities, out of the cities. This is the message the Lord has been giving me. The earthquakes will come, the floods will come, and we're not to establish ourselves in the wicked cities. From the Review and Herald, July 5, 1906. Get out of the large cities as fast as possible. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 6, page 195. The time has come when, as God opens the way, families should move out of the cities. From the Adventist Home, page 139. Out of the cities is my message at this time. Be assured that the call is for our people to locate miles from the large cities. Last Day Events, page 95. Now, Mrs. White also made a big emphasis on the importance of city evangelism and outreach to the cities. And some have found this a bit confusing and even wondered if she wasn't contradicting herself when she made appeals to move to cities to do evangelism. There's really no contradiction once you understand the full context of what she said. See, Mrs. White laid out a clear process for leaving the cities, out of the large cities first, to the smaller ones next, and then out of those smaller cities to retired, secluded homes. So you can see the first step would involve not only moving out of the large cities, but also moving into the smaller cities, outlying those larger cities. This was really a smart plan, particularly because it would allow God's people to start moving out of the large cities without dropping the work already taking place there and leaving it in the lurch. They would be within easy reach to keep that work going during the transition. By stepping out gradually and systematically, evangelism that was already underway in the large cities could remain uninterrupted, while God's people repositioned themselves to continue the work from outposts. Also, with this overall step-by-step plan in mind, you can see that it was perfectly consistent for Mrs. White to appeal to families to move to those smaller cities where there was a great need to establish new outreach. In doing so, they would simply be moving to the next step on their way out of the cities. It's not that she was calling them to come back to the cities from the country, but rather to begin making those moves out of the large cities and move to smaller cities where there was a need for missionaries. But ultimately, the goal was for God's people, step by step, to finally be relocated out of even the smaller cities as well. And thus we see God's ultimate plan for evangelizing the cities. The cities are to be worked from outposts, said the messenger of God. Shall not the cities be warned? Yes, not by God's people living in them, but by their visiting them to warn them of what is coming upon the earth. Evangelism, page 77. And this one, as God's commandment-keeping people, we must leave the cities. As did Enoch, we must work in the cities, but not dwell in them. Evangelism, pages 78 and 79. By the way, since that call to leave the large cities was given in 1900, I believe we're much closer now to the last step than the first. I really believe that it's time to be looking for those secluded country homes. And I want to show you how to get there, how to get this 8th component of a country lifestyle, how to get your family to that ultimate country location. So let's talk about that. And for starters, let me make something clear. We're not just talking about any place in the country. All country properties are not good country properties. In fact, let me warn you, the devil has a country property for you. You see, he hopes if he can lure you to the wrong place, you'll have such a bad experience. He hopes he'll cure you of the country living bug so much that you'll go back to the city and never want to come back to the country again. So here are the basic features you need for a country property to work, for it to be a good one. We've posted this list on our website over the years, but here it is again. Acreage, access, water, soil, slope, timber, and privacy. Now let me go through those quickly just for a few moments. I recommend a minimum of 10 acres. Now that might sound like a lot to you. You might even be thinking that's beyond your reach, but it isn't, so just stick with me and we'll talk more about how you can get that. Access. You need a property to be hard enough to keep most people away, but easy enough to keep it practical. And it also needs to be within reach of a metropolitan area where you could do mission work. For water, you need sufficient water for your family plus agriculture. For soil, it needs to be suitable for growing food. In slope, you're looking for something that's advantageous for agriculture. And in North America, the ideal would be a slight southwest slope. When we're talking about timber, we're referring to a sustainable supply of firewood and something that will also help to provide privacy, which is really also the last one on the list. And we're talking here about a buffer between you and neighbors, which is one more reason for my 10-acre minimum. Now, as you think about that list, you can see why living in a country setting is the only way you can fully experience those other components of a country lifestyle we've already looked at. A good piece of country property will provide that setting for connecting with your Creator. It will provide a sustainable source of water, a place to grow food, natural resources like firewood for energy, a place to develop a sustainable power system, and many other country living assets, including resources that can be used to help other people. We're talking about the ultimate country lifestyle here. This is the goal. And yes, you can achieve this goal. But to do that, you need something more. And that takes us to strategy number 3, which is establish your source of income first. Solve the country living income problem first before you move to the country. This is so important. One of the most common reasons people fail to achieve a country lifestyle is that they fail to do this. You need to have a way to make a living before you move. And here's the thing, it's not unrealistic to solve the income question. In fact, there are 5 ways that people are financially supporting a country lifestyle right now in this economy. Let's take a look at them. The first approach is simply replacing your current job with one just like it, only in a rural location. Now, this is the simplest and quickest solution, and it should be what you try first. However, if you hit a wall and are not able to find a similar job in a rural location, you need to be armed with the other 4 options I'll show you in a moment. The principle behind the strategy we're talking about right now is that the income source needs to come first, then the selection of a country home. Some people will suggest that that is somehow a lack of faith, but I strongly disagree. In fact, the opposite is true. It is the only real demonstration of faith, and to move to the country without having an income source in place is simply presumptuous. If you believe that God is leading you to a particular area or even a particular country property, then let Him prove it by providing a source of income in that area. In other words, this is one of the ways you can recognize His leading as you're looking for the right place in the country. So the way to begin is to start looking for the same type of job you have right now, only in suitable rural areas, the kinds of places where you'd hope to find a country home. In other words, start your search for country property by searching for a country job first. You may not be able to find a suitable job in a suitable country location. What then? Here are 4 more ways that people are making a living in the country right now. Telecommuting. Now, while this doesn't work for every occupation, more and more people are finding ways to live where they want to by telecommuting. And many employers are becoming more friendly to the idea as it can cut overhead costs and they can get more productivity from happy employees who get to work from the comfort of their home and don't have to fight a commute every day. To explore this idea, start a discussion with your employer about the possibilities of working off-site. Try to find a way to frame your idea in terms of how it would benefit your employer. In other words, sweeten the deal and maybe suggest a trial period first to lessen the risk. Some people are financing their country lifestyle by starting a small local business that provides goods or services, and it can even be a family business. If you decide to give this a try, though, make sure you have a solid source of income in place and build your business on the side until it grows to the point at which you could quit your other job. One of the biggest opportunities right now for making a living with the freedom to live anywhere is through an online business. The advantage of this type of business is that you're not dependent on the local economy in a small rural community. Often these communities have a very limited or even depressed economy. But with the internet, the world is your marketplace. You may be able to do the same kind of work you're doing already, but as a freelancer or independent contractor, or even become a consultant. Now, this can be closely related to the telecommuting option, or you could even start a new business selling goods and services worldwide. However, just like the local business approach, this is something you should develop on the side first before you depend on it as your sole source of income. The 5th way of making a living in the country that really deserves serious consideration is small market gardening. And this is essentially a local business, but I put it in a category all of its own because it's so unique. With growing concern about GMO and the biotech impact on our food supply, there's a growing marketplace for healthy, organically grown food. Just like the home business models we looked at, you want a dependable source of income while you transition into this kind of a business. And you should also mentor with someone who's doing this kind of business successfully already, since, as I just mentioned, there's such a unique skill set for this type of business as compared to other small business pursuits. All right, let's move to strategy number 4 for achieving a country lifestyle, and this one can save you thousands on a country home. And that strategy is rent before you buy. Now that might seem counterintuitive to you. You might be wondering how this could save you thousands, especially if you're putting money in a landlord's pocket. But I wish I could introduce you to all the people I know who didn't do this. They didn't rent first and then later found themselves trying to sell their country home because they would have never bought it had they known what they know now. And if you think it's hard to sell a city home right now, try selling a country property, especially one that has problems. So meanwhile, they're stuck in a problem property, watching their value drop in this market and maybe paying a mortgage payment month after month to boot. And the sad thing is they could have avoided all of this by renting first. Renting first enables you to get to the country more quickly without committing yourself to a piece of country property before you have adequate information to to make the best choice. For example, there are microclimates in areas, places that get colder than everywhere else in the county, or places that get more snow than anywhere else, or maybe problematic neighboring property owners, and the list goes on. These are factors you will most likely not be aware of and may miss in your research when you don't live in the area. Living in an area before you buy enables you to learn about these things over time as a local. Renting in an area where you want to find a country property also enables you to be on the ground and develop friendships with realtors and other locals, which can ultimately lead to learning about good deals via word of mouth, deals you might never have found out about if you hadn't lived in the area. What's more, by spending more time in an area before you buy, you have the advantage of getting to know the values in that area much better before you make an offer, which can equate to thousands of dollars in savings when you buy. Renting in this economy has been especially advantageous as property values in many areas have dropped far more than the money spent in rent over the same period of time. Let me show you what I mean. I went to Craigslist and searched for homes for rent and found this ad for a 40-acre ranch available for rent. 2-bed, 2-bath, bonus room, only 20 minutes from town, large common areas, new laminate, new carpet, forced air wood furnace, electric backup, wood burning fireplace, double car garage, 30 by 40 foot detached shop, 40 acres of fenced area for horses with barn, pets okay, all that for $900 a month. Now, I know of a country property for sale not too far from where this rental is located that has dropped in price more than $500,000 over the last 2 years. It was originally priced at $950,000 and then it dropped to $865,000 a little more than 2 years ago. Now it's priced at $350,000. Now, look at the math on this. This is interesting. Over the past 2 years, the price of that property dropped from $865,000 to $350,000, which is a difference of $515,000. Now, if you had been renting the ranch we saw in Craigslist a moment ago for $900 a month for the last 2 years, you would have spent a total of $21,600. Okay, so now, if you were to purchase the country property shown in the upper part of this slide, you would have saved $515,000. In other words, you would have spent $21,600 to save $515,000. Now that's a pretty good return on investment. But don't misunderstand me. I don't recommend renting in order to try to speculate on the real estate market. I'm just saying that in this economy, this is just one more potential benefit of renting on top of the other benefits I've already mentioned. Now, I'd still recommend it even in a different market because of the money, mistakes, and grief it can save you in the long run. By the way, it should be obvious, but renting also opens the door for a country lifestyle to people who aren't even in a position to purchase property at all. Once you solve the question of how to support your family, you could rent a country property that you may not be able to afford to purchase. Okay, the next strategy, and it's an important one, is formulate a plan. It's been said that people who fail to plan, plan to fail. And for sure, something as big as a total change in lifestyle, transitioning from an urban to a country lifestyle, requires careful planning. The Bible puts it this way: let all things be done decently and in order, 1 Corinthians 14:40. Ellen White said this about the importance of planning. Much depends upon laying our plans according to the word of the Lord, and with persevering energy, carrying them out. From the book Country Living, page 17. This is also where prayer is essential to help us keep our plans on track. Spread every plan before God with fasting and with humbling of the soul before the Lord Jesus, and commit thy ways unto the Lord. The sure promise is He will direct the paths. Country Living, page 28. Now, when I say planning, I'm talking here about putting things down on paper, mapping out the process. That requires first identifying the steps in that process. By the way, doing this is critical for overcoming obstacles, because the first step that most people don't take when they undertake a big dream or vision is they don't identify and write down specifically just what obstacles are in the way. Yet how can you formulate a successful plan? How can you map a plan if you don't even know what obstacles you have to overcome, and if you haven't identified the steps required to reach your goals? Mapping all of this on paper has a surprising effect. Things that previously might have seemed overwhelming can become much more manageable in your mind once you have identified and defined exactly what's involved. And doing this also enables you to identify the next step or steps you need to take to move towards your goal. Well, probably the best way for me to explain what I mean is to show you a process map so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here's an overall process map identifying the major steps in relocating to a country property. First, we get the income in place, then find a rental, next find the right property, next start developing the garden and orchard on that property, next build a shop or barn, then build your home, and finally maybe add a guest cabin so you can be positioned to help others in the future. Now hopefully you notice that this process map is for just one part of the country lifestyle, the location part. Each of the other components of a country lifestyle call for its own process map. Also, each of the parts of this process map can be broken down into process maps of their own. For example, solving the income employment part of the equation can be broken down into a process map that might look like this. First, evaluate whether or not you could realistically commute from a country setting to your current place of employment. If not, then the next step would be to explore the possibility of telecommuting. If that seems feasible, you would then present your employer with a telecommuting proposal. If that fails, your next step would be to try to find a similar job in a country setting, or at least close enough to a suitable country location so that commuting would become realistic. If that all fails at resolving the income problem, you could then proceed to the last step and consider retraining or making a career change or even starting your own business. Process mapping is fun, but more importantly, it not only enables you to know what steps you need to take to reach your goals, it gives you a way to measure your progress and stay on track in reaching those goals. As you see progress, that encourages and motivates you to keep pressing on. But that only works if you understand and apply strategy number 6, which is set target dates to reach your goals. Many people are afraid of this strategy. They find themselves asking, what if I don't reach my goal by the target date? Here's the problem. You're far less likely to reach your goals if you don't set target dates. For sure, you're almost guaranteed to not reach your goals as soon as you would otherwise if you had set target dates. And the reality is that you're quite likely to not reach your goals at all without target dates. So that means, of course, that the converse is true as well. Setting target dates greatly increases the likelihood that you will reach your goals. I can't overemphasize the importance of this strategy, especially because so many people fail to reach their goals because they fail to set target dates. This reminds me of something that happened several years ago at one of our Out of the Cities rallies. It was during a question and answer session when someone in the audience asked what we thought about having a 5-year plan to get out of the cities and establish their country lifestyle. At that point, somebody grabbed the other microphone and said something to the effect that we don't have time for a 5-year plan. The Lord is coming soon, and we shouldn't be thinking in terms of a 5-year time period. Now here's the thing. That was in 2005, 6 years ago. A 5-year plan would have served that person much better than no plan at all. Now I have no idea who it was that asked that question or what has since happened to them, but I'm willing to venture a guess that if they in fact did not set any plans or goals, there's a high likelihood they have not made much progress in the last 6 years. By the way, even though I say that a 5-year plan is better than no plan at all, I think you should set a much shorter time frame to reach your goal of achieving a country lifestyle. Set yourself some target dates that you can really be excited about when you get up in the morning. How about 2 to 3 years to achieve your country lifestyle? I believe it's doable. It's realistic for most people. But to see that happen, you need one more important strategy. But before we get to strategy number 7, which is huge, it's a strategy that will enable you to leverage all the others. But before we go there, I want to ask you this question in light of what we've covered so far. Are you beginning to see how powerful these strategies are in terms of positioning your family to be prepared for the coming crisis? Do you want the country lifestyle for your family? How important is it for you to position your family to thrive? Because every day you don't start implementing these strategies is one day closer to the time you're really going to wish you had. I don't want you to find yourself feeling the way I did on the eve of Y2K, only this time it will be the real thing. You don't have to find yourself remorseful that you didn't take the steps that would have made all the difference. Wouldn't it be better to be ready to look back on this day as the day you made the decision that changed everything? Yes, everything. I want you to think about that, because even more than just the peace of mind that comes with knowing you've positioned your family to stand through the toughest of times are the benefits you enjoy from the better life that comes with a country lifestyle. Those benefits are so valuable you'll be asking yourself why you didn't make these changes sooner. Am I glad we have a home in the country, that we've learned how to grow our own food, and that we have a solid food storage system, that we have an alternative energy backup system, our own independent water system, heat with wood, etc.? Yes, definitely. But you know what? The improvement that country living has brought to our overall lifestyle is worth even more to me. We are living better now than ever before. I have more time with my family, quality time in a fabulous environment to do fun things together. It's been great for our family. It's been great for our marriage. It's been great for us financially. Country living has brought a better lifestyle within our financial reach. It's just simply a better way to live. Wouldn't you like this experience to be yours? It can be, but only if you make the decision to start implementing these strategies now. Are you ready? Okay, then it's time for strategy number 7. And other than the very first strategy we looked at, that spiritual focus, strategy number 7 is the next most important of everything I've shared in this presentation. This can make all the difference in achieving that country lifestyle, getting you there faster, and avoiding mistakes, pitfalls, and unnecessary detours. Here it is. Strategy number 7, connect with a coach or a mentor. By a coach or a mentor, I mean someone that successfully achieved a country lifestyle themselves. Someone who's been there. In fact, ideally it should be someone who's not only gone through the process themselves, but also has been involved in helping others successfully achieve these same goals as well. I can tell you from personal experience the powerful benefits of a good coach or mentor. One of my loves in life has been music. In fact, I almost pursued a career as a professional classical concert pianist. I achieved that level of proficiency because I was very fortunate. I was blessed to have several great piano teachers, coaches over the years. These were men and women who were fantastic pianists themselves, and they were passionate about helping others to achieve the same level of proficiency as well. And as I said, I was fortunate to have connected with them. In fact, I should really say that I was fortunate to have parents that connected me with them. The power of good coaching is understood by Olympic athletes. It's understood by business people, even people who are just trying to get in shape. Seek fitness coaches to help them successfully reach their goals. And the same goes for successfully achieving a country lifestyle. We're talking about changing your whole way of life. A good mentor can help you get there faster while avoiding costly mistakes. This is a big undertaking with many facets, and having the guidance of someone with experience is invaluable. In fact, that's why we developed the Country Living University online home study training program. Country Living University utilizes videos, audios, and workbooks to bring together the best training from the last 10 years of not only our own experience, but the collective experience gained from the people we've helped make the same changes. There are 2 basic parts of the training: the core curriculum and the personal mentoring. The core curriculum covers everything from country living income to finding country property to training in all aspects of a country lifestyle like gardening, food storage techniques, independent water and power systems, basic tree felling and firewood cutting, natural home remedies, and much more. The mentoring part is where I get on the phone with our students to help them apply what they've learned in the core curriculum to their individual situation. It's when I personally answer their specific questions or help them solve whatever challenges or problems they're facing in their quest to achieve their country lifestyle goals. In other words, I've committed myself to be there to personally mentor them through each step of the process. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So first, let me show you what's covered in the core curriculum. And as I said a moment ago, the core curriculum is delivered through our online training portal where you get access to training videos, audios, workbooks, and other resources to give you the information and the tools you need to achieve a country lifestyle. These resources are organized into 12 training modules. And so here's a brief overview of what's included in each module. First, Module 1, Country Living Income. In this module, we delve deeper into the subject of how to financially support your country lifestyle. We go into much greater depth into the 5 income models that you learned about in this webinar to help you decide which of those income models is best for you. Plus, you get to meet real people who are doing it, so you can see how you can use these very same income models to support your own country lifestyle. You also learn principles for starting a home business that can be successful in a rural setting. We cover topics like how to research your niche, researching the market and the competition to help you identify what will work and what won't, and how to get started with minimal investment. We'll look specifically at the online business model and show you how you can start building an internet business while you continue your current employment. Module 1 also includes an intro to market gardening. Module 2 is all about finding country property. In this module, we go much deeper into the 7 things you need in a country property. You'll learn how to choose the right area to begin your search. And then I teach you the strategies and techniques that I've learned over the years to dig up information so that you can know more about any piece of property than even the realtor who's selling it. What's more, I show you how to get that information before you ever even get in your car to go and look at it. You'll learn how to discover hidden problems and avoid pitfalls that could otherwise cost you thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. What you learn in this module will save you countless hours of wasted time chasing down the wrong properties and give you an edge over others in the marketplace who simply don't have these skills. In Module 3, you'll learn everything you need to know about one of the most important components of a country lifestyle, water. I'll teach you how to determine the true yield of a well. I'll also show you how to estimate the yield of any stream or creek. Just as important, you'll learn how to design an independent water system for any situation. There's an entire lesson dealing with how to develop and enclose a spring, and you'll also learn how to test any water source to make sure it's safe for drinking. Next, Module 4, Independent Energy. In this module, you'll learn how to design an independent energy system. You'll learn how to select the right generator and get my pick of the best options, especially for taking that first step in putting a backup system in place to provide power for your family in case of a disaster or an emergency, even if you're living in a metropolitan or suburban area. I'll walk you through the design of solar, hydro, and wind systems. Plus, I'll take you on a video tour of real-life independent energy systems people are using right now to provide their own power. In Module 5, Laura and I are going to teach you the techniques we use for safe and effective food storage. You'll learn how to safely and properly use airtight sealed containers to store things like grains and legumes. We'll also teach you how to can both fruits and vegetables, the right approach for using water bath and pressure canning methods, and you'll also learn how to dehydrate both fruits and vegetables. As we talked about a few moments ago, this is an essential part of a country lifestyle you can get started on right now, even if you're living in the city. Module 6 is the Country Living University Home Gardening course. In this module, you'll learn how to test your soil and, even more importantly, how to interpret the results of that soil testing so that you'll know what you need to do to fix nutrient deficiencies before you plant so you get the results you want. I'll be teaching you how to select the right seeds and then how to grow your own starts and transplant those starts to get the most out of your growing season. You'll also learn effective techniques for natural pest and weed control, along with affordable options for greenhouse gardening, making it possible to extend your growing season even more and thus making it that much more feasible to provide food for your own family. This is another one of those components of a country lifestyle you can start to benefit from even in the city, and we'll show you how you can get started in growing your own food for your family no matter where you live. Module 7 is where we get to enjoy all that good food we've learned to grow ourselves and successfully preserve and store in the pantry. In this module, Laura and Allison share our favorite recipes and demonstrate great healthy cooking and baking. You'll learn how to make bread from flour you've milled from your grain storage, great healthy breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even holiday recipes, and some of our favorite desserts. And we'll also have a special presentation on the differences of doing your cooking and baking using a wood cook stove. In Module 8, we turn our attention to natural home remedies. You'll become an herbalist, learning how to make your own tinctures, ointments, teas, and more, and I'll share my favorite herbal recipes. Laura, a registered physical therapist, will teach you safe and effective hydrotherapy techniques. It's kind of ironic, but this part of a country lifestyle is even more important for you to master if you don't live in the country right now. And that's because with the growing threat to cities of terrorist attacks and pandemic outbreaks, and the very real likelihood of hospitals and health professionals being overwhelmed beyond their capacity, in such a scenario, home remedies will be the only hope for many people when disaster strikes. Module 9 is all about wood heat. You'll learn how to safely and effectively operate a chainsaw, as well as important maintenance tips to keep that chainsaw running for many years. We'll also demonstrate safe tree falling and wood cutting. You'll learn how to select the right wood stove and maintenance tips to keep your wood stove operating efficiently, and even how you can do your own chimney cleaning. In Module 10, you'll develop the skills you need for survival situations. These are practical skills everyone should have, like how to start a fire without matches or a cigarette lighter, water purification methods in survival situations, makeshift shelters using natural materials, and how to learn to identify and use wild edible plants. Module 11 will help get you up to speed with basic skills for fixing things yourself, like plumbing, fixing leaks, fence building and repair, and home firefighting and prevention. Remember that one of the reasons a country lifestyle empowers your family to thrive, even in the worst crisis, is that it involves learning how to handle more ourselves and become less dependent on others to take care of our family's needs. Finally, in Module 12, we'll focus on the spiritual component of a country lifestyle. Remember, a spiritual advantage is key to successfully making this transition. And as you go through this module, you'll learn important principles which will enable your family to get the maximum benefit from a country lifestyle. You'll also better understand the trends of current world events and what's happening behind the scenes, which will help you better prepare for what's coming. Now, what I just walked you through is an overview of the Country Living University core curriculum, 12 training modules delivered over the next 6 months, which will give you the skills and the tools to start living the country lifestyle as quickly as possible. Those 12 modules will consist of a total of more than 60 online downloadable videos, 16 downloadable audio MP3 files, and 60 downloadable workbooks and notes, plus the Country Living University online resource library. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, the other vital component to this training program is the personal mentoring, or what I call live coaching calls. You know, when I first put the Country Living University concept together, I decided to not only provide the very best training materials that would give you the information you need to achieve a country lifestyle as quickly as possible, but I knew that for you to succeed, we needed to provide something else. We needed a way to be able to work with you personally, to help you move forward in achieving your goals. We needed to provide mentoring, and that's where the live coaching comes in. Our live coaching program enables you to get on the phone with me twice a month and get my personal help with any aspect, any question, any challenge you might be facing in achieving your country lifestyle. Maybe you want my opinion on a piece of country property, or maybe you need help in developing your country home business, or maybe you've got a problem in your garden, or maybe you've got a natural remedy question. Whatever the case may be, through our live coaching program, you get direct access to me. And if we run into something that's beyond my scope, I don't drop it there. I do whatever is necessary to get the answer, to get the solution that you need to help you through. What's more, our live coaching calls are recorded and archived, so Country Living University members get access to all the questions and answers in all the live coaching calls. By the way, the live coaching is not something that only lasts for a short period of time. It's a service along with all the rest of the training resources that members have access to for life. Now, I do need to warn you, there are some people who will not benefit from this training, and so please listen carefully, because this is important for you to understand before you decide to enroll. The information, our training, and resources are like gold, but there's another part of the equation, and that's you. We can show you what to do, we can teach you the strategies that work, but if you don't apply what you learn, if you don't put into practice the strategies and techniques, if you don't take advantage of the live coaching, then you simply won't reap the benefits from this training program. But if you're really ready for a better way of life, if you're serious, if you're committed, if you're willing to apply yourself and put into practice the concepts, techniques, and strategies we'll teach you, then you will see results, and Country Living University will be a good match for you. So, what's the price? Well, when we first opened Country Living University several months ago, we had a special introductory price of $297. Now, just to give you an idea of how that breaks down when you do the math, it comes out to $395 per video, $195 per audio, and keep in mind the audios are not duplicate audio recordings of the videos. These audio recordings are in addition to the video lessons. Some are audio interviews, for example, and about 50 cents per workbook. So that was our introductory price back in April. Now the price is going up, but you can get in at that original price of $297 rather than the new price of $497 if you join right now. But this is only for a limited time, and I'll explain why in a moment. Now, we could have made the live coaching component a separate option at its own cost, but I didn't want people opting out of the live coaching to save money and just purchase the core curriculum without the coaching part and then try to go it alone. I wanted every student of Country Living University to have the benefit of the live coaching, the mentoring, because I know it's so important. I know it will make all the difference in your success at achieving your country lifestyle goals. So for right now at least, we're simply including the live coaching for everyone who joins Country Living University. You know, I'm really not sure how to even put a value on the live coaching. I only have 24 hours in a day, so there's a limit to how many coaching clients I can reasonably handle. And by the way, that's why this is a limited offer. It would be unfair to the students I've already committed to coaching if I didn't put a limit on how many new students we can take. So for those who join Country Living University right now, for $297, you get the core curriculum and the live coaching. But that's not all. We recently added a new bonus to the Country Living University training program. I call it our guest lecture series, and that's where we bring in various speakers who are active in teaching country living skills and have them do guest lectures for our students. And keep in mind, the guest lecture series is in addition to the core curriculum. So here's our guest lecture roster right now. Bob Gregory of Berea Gardens, and many of you participated in our last webinar with my friend Bob, and so you know he's a master when it comes to growing your own food. And I'm really pleased that Bob has agreed to be part of the guest lecture program. Craig and Nick Meisner of Mountain Media Ministries are two more personal friends of mine. It's been a real privilege working together with them in our Out of the Cities rallies, and they'll be bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to our guest lecture program. Jerry Franklin of You Can Survive Ministries is another one of my friends who I'm pleased to announce as one of our guest lecturers. Jerry travels and speaks and also hosts an annual family camp at their Sanctuary Ranch in northern British Columbia. Another personal friend and member of our guest lecture team is Walt Cross with the Mustard Seed Health Food Store. He also runs Lifestyle to Health, a lifestyle coaching program. Walt's a real master of herbal and other natural remedies, and his classes are always fascinating, so we're glad to have him on board. Another one of our guest lecturers who I'm pleased to have join us is Bob Jorgensen. Bob's been a friend of mine for many years and is well versed in country living, and he'll be sharing his insights on fruit tree care and culture. Finally, Dick Smith, who's a longtime friend and was even our neighbor for many years, joins our guest lecture team with a special emphasis on alternative energy, specifically wood gas generators. Now, as you might guess, I'm sure we'll be bringing in a few more guest lectures too, but this is our lineup right now. So let's go through this one more time to make sure you understand what the Country Living University membership includes. There's the core curriculum, the live coaching, plus the guest lecture series. And there is one more thing. You also get our full guarantee. You see, I believe Country Living University offers you the very best training to achieve a country lifestyle. And to prove that, I'm backing it up with a 30-day full money-back guarantee. During that 30 days, you'll get access to the first 4 training modules, plus live coaching, and if you aren't completely satisfied for any reason, simply ask me, and you'll get a full refund. No questions asked. All you have to do to get started right now is press the Enroll Now button below. When you do that, as soon as you complete the payment process, you'll be able to get started with the training. You'll have access to the live coaching call archives, and you'll get the call-in details to get in on your first live coaching call with me. If for some reason you don't see the Enroll Now button on your screen below this video, simply go to countrylivinguniversity.com/membership. You know, I wish there had been a Country Living University that we could have joined when we started out. It would have saved us more than $15,000. That's right, I've done the math, $15,000. If I had known then what I know now and what I teach all of the students in our training program, it would have saved us more than $15,000. And I can tell you without hesitation that what you could save from what you'll learn, even in just a couple of the training modules alone, can more than pay for the cost of the Country Living University membership. For example, in Module 3, Sustainable Water Systems, I'll teach you how to determine the true yield of a well. To pay a professional to do that for you with a pump test can cost you hundreds of dollars, easily more than the $297 it costs for the entire 12 modules of training, plus all the other additional components of this program. In Module 4, Independent Energy Systems, you'll learn how to do your own solar energy evaluation on a piece of property. I recently spoke with a solar energy salesman who shared with me that his company charges $250 to do a solar energy evaluation on a property. You can see why I'm so confident that the Country Living University training program can easily pay for itself. And that's not to even mention the bigger savings that you can experience when we show you how to avoid costly mistakes that can run into the thousands of dollars. But even more important is to consider this question. How important is it to you to position your family to not only survive, but to thrive now and through the coming crisis? What would it mean to you to have the confidence, the peace of mind to know that you've taken the steps necessary to prepare your family? What would it mean to have given your family the blessing of a country lifestyle? Now you know the steps you need to take. Now you know where to get the tools, the resources to help you take those steps. Now you know how to get the help, the mentoring to walk you through the process. And because you're with me on this webinar, I believe that you must know that a serious crisis is coming. And when it does come, there will be 2 kinds of people, those who are prepared and those who are not. You can decide right now which group you're going to be in. If you're ready to get started right now in the training, just press the Enroll Now button below this video or go to countrylivinguniversity.com/membership. Thanks again for joining me for this important presentation. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us the information to know in advance what's coming and how to get prepared. Thank you also for the blessings of a country lifestyle. I ask for a special blessing on each person who's joined us for this presentation. Please help them as they begin right now to position their family to stand strong now and through the tough times ahead. And we're asking for your help to do this because more than just preparing ourselves, more than just seeking to position our own families, we want to be positioned to be as useful as possible in ministering to others in the coming crisis. Thank you for hearing this prayer, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you again for joining me. God bless you, and good night.